If you've ever noticed a strange, uneasy sensation that settles in your chest the moment you open your banking app, you aren't alone. It isn't just the stress of the numbers themselves, it's the way your breath catches, the way your heart rate slightly climbs, and the subtle urge to close the screen as quickly as possible. You might find yourself overthinking a $5 purchase while simultaneously ignoring a massive bill that's been sitting on your counter for weeks. It doesn't look like a big deal to anyone else, but this relationship with money says more about your internal architecture than it does about your actual economy. For most of us, our financial behavior is a language. It is a way our nervous system communicates its history, its fears, and its deep seated need for safety. We like to think of money as a matter of math and logic, but in reality, it is almost entirely a matter of psychology. Long before you earned your first paycheck, you were absorbing a financial blueprint from the world around you. You were watching the way your parents' faces tightened when they discussed the mortgage. Sighs were listening to the silent tension in the air when someone asked for something extra. These moments were not just about dollars and cents. They were lessons in what it feels like to exist in a world of not enough. This leads to what psychologists call a scarcity mindset. It's a state of being where the brain is locked into a perpetual survival mode. When you are operating from scarcity, your mental bandwidth is constantly being consumed by the immediate need to survive the day. This creates a heavy cognitive load. It makes it nearly impossible to look at the horizon or make long-term plans because your brain is convinced that the future is a luxury you can't afford to think about yet. You aren't being irresponsible. You are being hyper-focused on survival. In this state, we often engage in behaviors that feel like they're helping, but are actually reinforcing the pattern. You might find yourself buying small impulsive luxuries, a coffee you don't need, a shirt you won't wear, because deep down, your brain believes the money is going to disappear anyway. You might as well get a hit of dopamine now before the void swallows it. This isn't a lack of discipline. It is a coping mechanism. It is your psyche trying to find a moment of relief in a landscape that feels perpetually barren. As this pattern deepens, it begins to shape your identity. You start to see yourself as the person who struggles. You might feel a strange sense of guilt or even a loss of belonging at the thought of having more than you need. For many, there's a subconscious pride in the struggle, as if suffering and financial hardship are markers of being real or grounded. When wealth feels like a threat to your social identity or your family history, your brain will find ways to push it away to keep you safe within the group you know. And here's where it gets interesting. We often think that the barrier between poverty and wealth is a lack of opportunity or a lack of hard work. But the real reason isn't what most people think. It's not about confidence. It's about your internal thermostat. Every one of us has a psychological safety threshold for how much money we are allowed to have. To a nervous system conditioned by scarcity, wealth isn't actually good, it's dangerous. Having extra money means having something to lose. It means stepping out of the familiar rhythm of the struggle and into an unknown world where the rules are different. To your subconscious, the poverty mindset isn't a failure. It's a familiar, predictable danger. And the human brain will almost always choose a familiar danger over an unknown benefit. This is why you might notice that whenever you finally manage to save a small cushion, a sudden emergency seems to appear out of nowhere, or you suddenly feel an overwhelming urge to spend it on something necessary. It feels like bad luck, but often it is your nervous system bringing you back to your psychological baseline. You are unconsciously returning to the level of stress that you have been calibrated to handle. You are making yourself poor, again, because being poor feels like home. The transition from this state to an abundance mindset is not about a sudden windfall of cash. It is a slow, quiet shift in how you perceive the concept of enough. Abundance is the psychological capacity to believe that there will be more. It is the move from a closed system where every dollar spent is a permanent loss to an open system where money is viewed as a flow. For someone locked in a poverty mindset, money is a finite resource that is constantly leaking away. For someone in an abundance mindset, money is a tool that can be used to create value. This shift is incredibly difficult because it feels like a betrayal of your survival instincts. It feels like letting go of the handrail in the middle of a storm. But that discomfort isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's the sensation of your identity expanding beyond the boundaries of the person who struggles. We often think that once we have the money, the fear will stop. But the psychology works in reverse. The fear must be observed and understood before the external reality can truly shift. You have to notice the way you hold your breath when you tap your card. You have to notice the way you judge people who have wealth, or the way you feel not allowed to want more. These aren't just thoughts, they are the walls of the cage you've been living in. It was never just about the economics. It was a pattern of seeking safety in the struggle because the struggle was the only thing you knew. It was a way of protecting yourself from the vulnerability of having something to lose. And that awareness alone changes how you move. It wasn't a lack of ability. It was a blueprint of safety that you simply outgrew. Understanding yourself is the beginning of everything. Once you see the blueprint, you realize it's just a set of directions you've been following by heart. And once you realize you're the one holding the map, you can start to look at a different horizon. It was never about being poor. It was about a nervous system that learned to survive and is now being asked to learn how to live. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that awareness alone changes how you move. It was never random. It was a pattern. Understanding your own internal thermostat is the first step toward a different kind of wealth. The kind that starts from the inside and slowly, inevitably changes the world you see.